Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Luna Station and watched the stars disappear. One by one, massive dark shapes moved across the sky, blocking out the light from distant suns. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. There were hundreds of them. "Sir, we're getting reports from all colonies," said Lieutenant Tom Bradley at the communications desk. His voice shook. "They're everywhere. Every human world has ships above it." Jake felt his stomach drop. He had been a space captain for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien ships were silent. They just hung there in space like giant metal clouds. "Any word from Earth?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. President Walsh is calling an emergency meeting. She wants all fleet commanders to report in." Jake nodded. He looked out at the alien fleet again. There had to be at least 200 ships just around Earth and Luna. If every human colony had the same number, that meant thousands of alien warships. Dr. Lisa Kane walked onto the bridge. She was the best alien expert Earth had, even though humans had never met real aliens before. She studied the data from their deep space telescopes and made guesses about what might be out there. "Captain Morrison, I've been analyzing their ships," she said. "The metal they use is not from our periodic table, and the energy readings are off the charts." "How advanced are they?" Jake asked. "At least 500 years ahead of us. Maybe more." Jake felt cold. Human technology was good, but it was nothing compared to this. Their best warships looked like toys next to the alien vessels. A new voice came over the communication system. It was not human. The words were strange, but somehow Jake could understand them. "The aliens must have some kind of translation device. Humans of Earth and all your colonies," the voice said. It sounded like insects buzzing, but the translation made it clear. "I am General Kethmore of the Hegemony Coalition. We are here to offer you a choice." The bridge went silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing and listened. "You will surrender all your worlds to us. You will serve the Coalition as our subjects. You will follow our laws and give us what we demand. This is your first option." Jake clenched his fists. He looked around at his crew. They all had the same angry look on their faces. "Your second option is simple. We will burn every human world to ash. We will kill every man, woman, and child. We will make sure nothing human survives in this galaxy." The alien paused. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. "You have 72 hours to decide. Kneel or burn. Choose wisely." The communication ended. The bridge was so quiet Jake could hear the air recycling system humming. "Sir," said Lieutenant Bradley, "we're getting calls from every colony. They all heard the same message." Jake turned to Dr. Kane. "What do you know about this coalition?" "Nothing," she admitted. "But I'm running analysis on their broadcast. The signal came from 17 different ship types. That suggests multiple alien species working together." "A military alliance," Jake said. "More than that. The way they spoke, it sounds like they've done this before. They said we would serve as subjects. That means they have other subject species already." Jake walked to his command chair and sat down. 72 hours. 3 days to make the most important decision in human history. "Get me Admiral Carter," he ordered. The screen lit up with the face of Admiral Ben Carter, the head of Earth's space forces. He looked tired and worried. "Jake, please tell me you have good news," Carter said. "Sorry, sir. Our situation here is the same as everywhere else. We're completely outnumbered." "I was afraid of that. I'm looking at intelligence reports from our outer colonies. New Angeles is starting evacuation procedures. Haven's Rest wants to fight. Green Valley is trying to open diplomatic channels. What does Earth Command want to do?" Carter was quiet for a moment. "President Walsh is meeting with the Emergency Council now, but Jake, I need you to know something. We might have options they don't know about." "What kind of options?" "Classified ones. Colonel Henderson will contact you soon. Just be ready." The communication ended. Jake stared at the screen. Classified options. That could mean anything. Dr. Kane was working at a computer terminal. "Captain, I've been looking at historical patterns. When a technologically superior force gives an ultimatum like this, they usually mean it. They're not bluffing. So our choices really are surrender or die. That's what they want us to think, but there might be a third option they didn't mention. What's that? Lisa looked up from her computer. What if we make sure they get nothing? What if we choose to burn, but we do it ourselves? Jake stared at her. You mean destroy our own worlds? Think about it. They want us as slaves. They want our resources. They want our knowledge. What if we deny them everything? Before Jake could answer, alerts started flashing on every screen. Lieutenant Bradley's voice was urgent. Captain, they're doing something. 2 of our military satellites just went dark. On the main screen, Jake watched as bright flashes appeared near Earth. The aliens had destroyed 2 satellites with perfect accuracy. No explosions, no debris. The satellites just vanished. They're showing us their power, Jake said. And our helplessness, Dr. Kane added. Jake stood up and walked to the window. The alien ships hung in space like sleeping giants. Each one could probably destroy Luna Station with a single shot. But humans had surprised enemies before. Maybe they could do it again. His communication device buzzed. A message appeared. Colonel Henderson requests private meeting. Prometheus clearance required. Jake didn't know what Prometheus clearance meant, but he had a feeling he was about to find out. The next 72 hours would decide if humans lived free, died fighting, or spent eternity as slaves. He looked out at the alien fleet one more time. Kneel or burn, he whispered to himself. We'll see about that. 36 hours remained when the first colony broke ranks. Governor Tom Bradley of New Angeles sent an emergency message to all human worlds. We are beginning full evacuation. His voice crackled through the communication system. Every ship we have is loading civilians. Women and children first. Captain Jake Morrison listened to the broadcast from Luna Station. Around him, his crew worked frantically to analyze the alien fleet. The massive ships had not moved since their arrival, but everyone knew they were watching. Smart choice, said Dr. Lisa Kane as she joined Jake at the command center. New Angeles has the largest civilian population. If anyone should run, it's them. What about the other colonies? Jake asked. Lieutenant Bradley pulled up the colony status board. Haven's Rest voted to fight. Director Kate Murphy says the miners won't abandon their world. Green Valley is trying to negotiate through their diplomatic corps. Jake shook his head. Negotiate with what? We have nothing they want except our surrender. Actually, we might have more than we think, Lisa said. She held up a data pad with strange symbols on it. I've been working all night to decode their historical database. The Coalition has been very careless with their broadcasts. What did you find? Lisa's face was grim. Every species that surrendered to them is gone now. Not dead, but not themselves anymore. The Coalition changes them. Genetic modification, memory erasure, cultural destruction. Jake felt his blood turn cold. They turned them into slaves. Worse than slaves. They turned them into different species entirely. The Coalition has 17 member races, but I found records of 43 species that joined them over the past 1,000 years. The other 26 just disappeared from history, so surrender means extinction anyway. A slow extinction. They keep the useful ones alive for a few generations, then gradually eliminate the rest. Jake's communication device buzzed. A coded message appeared on the screen. Colonel Henderson requesting immediate secure meeting. Prometheus protocol activated. I have to go, Jake told Lisa. Keep working on those alien records. We need to know everything. Jake walked through the corridors of Luna Station to a section he had never seen before. The doors required special clearance that he did not know he had. When he placed his hand on the scanner, it beeped green and let him through. Colonel Ray Henderson was waiting in a room filled with computer screens. He was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes. Jake had heard of him but never met him before. Captain Morrison, thank you for coming. What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest level. What's the Prometheus protocol? Jake asked. Our final option. The one we hoped we would never use. Henderson walked to a large screen that showed a map of all human colonies. 30 years ago, Earth's leaders realized that humanity might face extinction someday. They asked a simple question. What if we can't win? What if we can't run? What if our only choice is how we die? Jake stared at the map. Small red dots appeared on every human world, including Earth. We placed fusion charges in the core of every human planet, not just nuclear bombs. These charges will turn entire worlds into stars, brief stars that burn for a few minutes, then collapse into expanding clouds of plasma. You want to destroy our own worlds? Not want, Captain. But if the choice is between slavery and freedom, we choose freedom, even if freedom means death. Jake sat down hard in a nearby chair. How many people know about this? 57 people across all colonies. Engineers, physicists, military commanders, everyone who would need to know to make it work. And you're asking me to help? I'm asking you to coordinate the final evacuation. If we trigger Prometheus, we can save perhaps 10% of our population. Children, genetic samples, cultural archives, the ones who will carry humanity to the stars. Jake looked at the screen again. Earth glowed with dozens of red dots. His homeworld, the birthplace of every human who had ever lived. The coalition expects us to kneel or let them burn us. Henderson continued. They don't expect us to burn ourselves, and that's exactly why we have to do it. What about the other colonies? Do they know? Some do. Haven's Rest is already loading their charges. Director Murphy says the miners understand what needs to be done. New Angeles doesn't know yet, but Governor Bradley will be told soon. Jake's communication device buzzed again. An urgent message from Dr. Kane. Captain, you need to see this immediately. The coalition just made a demonstration. Jake ran back to the main bridge. On the screen, he saw the burning wreckage of Arcturus Base, a small research station in the outer system. 3,000 scientists had worked there. Now it was just twisted metal and flames. They got impatient, Lisa said. Her face was pale. They wanted to show us what burning looks like. Lieutenant Bradley was monitoring communications from across human space. Sir, we're getting responses from every colony. The demonstration has changed everything. What kind of responses? New Angeles is speeding up evacuation. Haven's Rest is moving to full military alert, but Green Valley surrendered. They're broadcasting their submission to the coalition. Jake felt sick. The first human world had fallen without a shot being fired. There's more, Bradley continued. President Walsh is about to make an announcement to all humanity. It's going. Outlive in 10 minutes. The screen changed to show President Amy Walsh standing behind her desk in the White House. She looked older than Jake remembered. The weight of the impossible decision showed in her eyes. My fellow humans, she began. We face a choice that no species should ever have to make. We can surrender our freedom and watch our children become slaves to alien masters. We can fight a war we cannot win and watch our worlds burn under alien weapons. She paused and looked directly into the camera. Or we can choose a third option. We can make sure that if humanity dies, we die as free beings. We can make sure the coalition gets nothing from us. We can burn our own worlds and deny them the satisfaction of conquest. Jake heard gasps from around the bridge. This was the first time most of his crew had heard about the Prometheus Protocol. To those who choose to fight, you have our support. To those who choose to run, you have our blessing. To those who choose to burn, you have our gratitude. But to those who choose to kneel, you are no longer human. The president took a deep breath. I have made my choice. Earth will burn before Earth will kneel. We have 30 hours to evacuate whoever we can. Then we light the fire that will be seen across the galaxy. The broadcast ended. The bridge was completely silent. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for his decision. Well, he said quietly, I guess we know what we're doing. Outside the window, the alien ships continued their silent watch, not knowing that humanity had just chosen to burn. 12 hours remained when the evacuation ships began to launch. Captain Jake Morrison watched from Luna Station as hundreds of vessels lifted off from Earth's surface. Each ship carried children, families, and the most important things humanity needed to survive. Dr. Lisa Kane stood beside him, holding a data pad with the final evacuation numbers. "We're getting 43% off Earth," she said. "Better than we hoped." "What about the other worlds?" New Angeles got 60% evacuated. Haven's Rest only managed 20% because they started too late. Green Valley didn't evacuate at all. Jake nodded grimly. Green Valley had surrendered to the coalition. Governor Frank Robinson had broadcast his submission 6 hours ago. The coalition ships above that world had landed and were already taking control. "Any word from our people on Green Valley?" Jake asked. "Nothing." The coalition cut all communications as soon as they landed. On the main screen, Jake could see the massive alien ships hanging in space around Earth. They had not moved since the evacuation began. Either they didn't understand what humanity was doing, or they didn't care. Colonel Henderson's voice came over the secure channel. "All stations, this is Prometheus Control. Final countdown begins in 30 minutes. All evacuation ships must reach safe distance." Jake activated his ship-wide communication system. "This is Captain Morrison. All personnel not essential to the final operation should report to evacuation ships immediately. This is not a request." Lieutenant Bradley looked up from his console. "Sir, most of the crew wants to stay. They say if Earth burns, they want to see it happen. Tell them they can watch from the evacuation ships. We need people to carry on our memory." Dr. Kane was monitoring coalition communications. "They're getting nervous. I'm picking up increased chatter between their ships. They know something is happening, but they can't figure out what. Good. Let them worry." On Earth's surface, engineer Carlos Rivera was making final preparations at the primary fusion site. The charges were buried deep in the planet's tectonic plates. When they went off, they would crack the world open like an egg and turn the entire planet into a brief star. Dr. Helen Brooks worked with him, checking the timing sequences. "All sites report ready," she said into her communication device. "Earth will burn evenly. The light will reach every coalition ship at the same moment." "How long will it last?" Rivera asked. "The star phase will be about 8 minutes. Then the planet will collapse into a plasma cloud. That cloud will expand for months." Rivera looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, his daughter was on an evacuation ship heading for the outer system. She was only 7 years old. She would grow up knowing that her father helped turn Earth into a star. "It's worth it," he said quietly. On Haven's Rest, director Kate Murphy was making her own preparations. The mining world was rich in heavy elements that would make the fusion reaction even more spectacular. She had sent away as many people as she could, but 2 million miners had chosen to stay. "We dug deep into this world for 50 years, she told her people. "Now we'll show the galaxy what's buried down here." Lieutenant Sarah Davis, her security chief, stood beside her at the control center. "Ma'am, the coalition ships are moving. They're coming closer to the surface. Let them come. They want to see what we're made of. They're about to find out." On Luna Station, Jake received the final reports from all human worlds. 17 colonies were ready to burn. 3 had surrendered. 2 had been destroyed by the coalition during evacuation attempts. "Captain," said Dr. Kane, "I'm detecting something strange in the coalition communications. They're using words I haven't seen before. I think they're confused." "What do you mean?" "They keep asking their command ships for instructions, but their command ships don't know what to tell them. I think they've never seen anything like this before." Jake smiled for the first time in 3 days. "Good. We're about to give them something to really think about." Colonel Henderson's voice came over all channels. "All stations, this is Prometheus Control. Final countdown begins now. 10 minutes to ignition." Across human space, evacuation ships moved to safe distances. Parents held their children and pointed at their home worlds. Teachers explained to students that they were about to witness the bravest thing any species had ever done. 5 minutes to ignition. On Earth, the last evacuation ship lifted off from the surface. Captain Jake Morrison watched it go, then turned to his remaining crew. "Anyone who wants to leave can still go," he said. Nobody moved. 2 minutes to ignition," The coalition ships suddenly came alive. Their engines glowed as they moved closer to Earth and the other human worlds. General Kethmore's voice crackled over all frequencies. "Humans, what are you doing? Stop this immediately." "President," Walsh answered from her evacuation ship. Her voice was calm and clear. "We told you our choice, General. We choose to burn. You cannot destroy your own worlds. This is madness. This is freedom. 30 seconds to ignition." Jake looked out at Earth one last time. It was a beautiful blue and green marble hanging in space. In 30 seconds, it would become a star. 10 seconds. The coalition ships were moving frantically now, trying to get away from the human worlds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The charges detonated simultaneously across 17 human worlds. Jake watched as Earth's surface cracked open along the fault lines. Brilliant white light poured out from the cracks like blood from wounds. The light grew brighter and brighter until Jake had to look away. When he looked back, Earth was gone. In its place was a new star, burning white-hot and beautiful. The star lasted for 8 minutes and 17 seconds. Then it collapsed into an expanding cloud of plasma that painted the solar system in brilliant colors. Across human space, 16 other worlds became stars at exactly the same moment. The light from their burning reached the coalition ships and lit them up like candles. Jake watched the nearest coalition vessel try to escape the expanding plasma cloud. It was too late. The cloud swallowed the ship and turned it into glowing gas. "All coalition ships, this is Admiral Morrison," Jake said into his communication system. He had promoted himself. There was nobody left to argue with. "You wanted us to kneel or burn. We burned. Every human world you see burning is one you will never have." General Kethmore's voice came back, full of shock and horror. "You destroyed your own species. You are all insane." "No, General, we are free. And now the whole galaxy knows that some species would rather burn than kneel." Jake looked around at his crew. They were all staring at the plasma clouds where their worlds used to be. "Set course for the outer system," he ordered. "Let's go find our people." As Luna Station moved away from the burning remains of Earth, Jake noticed something on the long-range sensors. Coalition ships throughout the sector were retreating. For the first time since they arrived, the aliens looked afraid. The news spread faster than light through coalition space. Within hours, every species in the galaxy knew what humans had done. They had destroyed their own worlds rather than become slaves. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, now called the Defiance. Around him, the human refugee fleet moved slowly toward the outer edge of the galaxy. 200 ships carried all that remained of humanity, about 40 million people out of 12 billion. "Admiral, we're intercepting coalition communications," said Lieutenant Bradley. "They're having problems on multiple worlds." Jake walked to the communication station. "What kind of problems?" "Rebellion, sir. 3 different species have started fighting back." Dr. Lisa Kane looked up from her research station. "It makes sense. We showed them something they never thought was possible. If humans would rather die than be slaves, maybe they don't have to be slaves either." On the screen, Jake could see intercepted video from across coalition space. On the water world of Merdun, the aquatic people were flooding their own cities to keep coalition forces out. On the crystal world of Zeftar, the crystalline beings were shattering their communication networks so the coalition couldn't control them. "Look at this," Dr. Kane said, pointing to another video feed. "The gas giant people called Airthul have stopped producing energy for the coalition. They're just floating in their atmosphere and ignoring all orders." Jake smiled. For the first time since Earth burned, he felt hope. On the Murden homeworld, a revolutionary leader named Kushan was broadcasting President Walsh's final message across their underwater cities. The aquatic people had been slaves to the coalition for 300 years, but they had never forgotten what freedom felt like. "Listen to the human words," Kushan said to the gathered crowds. "We burn so that the idea of freedom never dies. We are the spark that shows others they don't have to kneel." The Meriden had no way to burn their worlds like humans did, but they had their own ways to fight. Water was their weapon. They flooded coalition bases and drowned the alien equipment. When coalition ships tried to land, the Murden created massive whirlpools that pulled them down into the ocean depths. On the crystal world of Zeftar, the crystalline beings had a different approach. They were connected to each other through crystal networks that covered their entire planet. For centuries, the Coalition had used these networks to control them, but the Zeftar had learned something from watching human worlds burn. Sometimes you had to destroy what you loved to keep it free. They began shattering their own crystal networks, breaking the connections that let the Coalition control their minds. Each broken crystal sent waves of pain through their entire species, but they kept breaking them anyway. By the end of the first day, the Coalition had lost all control over Zeftar. General Kethmore watched the rebellions from his command ship and felt fear for the first time in his long military career. In over 1,000 years, the Coalition had never faced anything like this. Subject species were supposed to be grateful for Coalition rule. They were supposed to want to serve. "How many worlds are in rebellion?" he asked his intelligence officer. 17 so far, General. The number is growing every hour. What are they demanding? Nothing, sir. They're not trying to negotiate. They're just fighting. Some are destroying their own infrastructure rather than let us use it. Kethmore slammed his claw against the control panel. "The humans have infected them with madness. General, we have another problem. Our forces are reporting decreased combat effectiveness when fighting the rebels. Our soldiers are hesitant." Hesitant? What do you mean? They've seen what the humans did, sir. They know that any species might choose death over surrender. It's making our troops nervous. Back with the human refugee fleet, Admiral Morrison was planning their next move. They couldn't hide forever. The Coalition would find them eventually. "Admiral," said Engineer Carlos Rivera, "I've been working on something. We learned how to turn worlds into stars. What if we could use that knowledge as a weapon?" "What do you mean?" "We could build charges that turn enemy worlds into stars. Not our worlds, their worlds." Dr. Helen Brooks looked up from her calculations. "It's possible. We could call them Phoenix charges. Strike fast, turn their military bases into temporary stars, then disappear before they can respond." Jake considered this. "It's not about conquest. It's about showing other species that the Coalition can be beaten." "Exactly. Every Coalition world we destroy becomes proof that they're not unbeatable." Dr. Kane was monitoring more Coalition communications. "Admiral, you need to hear this. General Kethmore is requesting reinforcements from the Coalition core worlds. He says the rebellion is spreading too fast for his current forces to handle." "How many species are fighting now?" 8 species in open rebellion, 12 more showing signs of unrest. The Coalition is losing control of nearly half their territory. Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, species that had been slaves for centuries were learning to fight back, all because humanity had chosen to burn rather than kneel. "Sir," said Lieutenant Bradley, "we're getting a transmission from the Murdun rebels. They want to coordinate attacks with us." "Put them through." The screen filled with the face of Kushan, speaking through the water of his underwater city. His translated words were clear and strong. "Human Admiral, your species has given us the greatest gift in the galaxy. You have given us hope. The Mirrodin offer alliance with the human survivors." "What kind of alliance?" Jake asked. "We fight together. We learn from each other. We show the galaxy that freedom is worth any price." Jake felt something he hadn't felt since Earth burned. Pride. "The human fleet accepts your alliance, Kushan. Together, we'll teach the Coalition that some fires can't be put out." Over the next few days, more species joined the alliance. The crystalline Zeftar sent messages of support. The gas giant Erthal promised to share their energy manipulation technology. Even some Coalition species began secretly helping the rebels. "General, Kethmore found himself fighting a war unlike any in Coalition history. His enemies didn't want territory or resources. They wanted something much more dangerous. They wanted freedom." "General," his intelligence officer reported, "we've lost contact with the prison world of Kethador. The inmates have taken control." "What? Inmates?" "Political prisoners from dozens of species, sir. They've been held there for opposing Coalition rule. Someone transmitted the human president's speech to them. How many prisoners? 50 million, sir, including military leaders, scientists, and revolutionaries from across coalition space. Kethamore realized with growing horror that the humans had done more than destroy their own worlds. They had planted a seed of rebellion that was growing into a forest of fire. In his private quarters, he recorded a message to Coalition High Command. The human strategy was not suicide. It was warfare. They sacrificed themselves to create something far more dangerous than their fleet ever was. They created an idea. The idea that freedom is worth dying for. Admiral Morrison read the intercepted message and smiled. Colonel Henderson was right, he said to Dr. Kane. We chose how to die, but it turns out we also chose how to live. The human refugee fleet continued toward the galactic rim, but they were no longer alone. Behind them, the galaxy burned with rebellions inspired by 17 worlds that had chosen to become stars rather than surrender their freedom. 5 years after Earth burned, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Freedom Station, a massive base built in the dark space between galaxies. Around him, representatives from 37 different species worked together planning their next strike against the coalition. The human refugee fleet had grown into something much larger. They now led the Free Worlds Alliance, a collection of rebel species that had learned to fight like humans, with absolute determination and no fear of death. Admiral, the Phoenix charges are ready for deployment, said Engineer Carlos Rivera. He looked older now with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was still strong. We can turn 12 coalition military bases into stars simultaneously. Jake nodded. The Phoenix charges were humanity's gift to the rebellion. They took the same technology that had destroyed Earth and turned it into a weapon against their enemies. But these charges weren't used to destroy rebel worlds. They were used to eliminate coalition strongholds. Dr. Lisa Kane approached with the latest intelligence reports. Jake, you need to see this. The coalition is collapsing faster than we expected, she handed him a datapad with maps of coalition space. Red areas showed worlds in rebellion. Yellow areas showed worlds with growing unrest. Only small patches of green remained loyal to the coalition. How many species are fighting now? Jake asked. 43 species in open rebellion. 19, more providing secret support. The coalition only has firm control over maybe 30% of their former territory. Jake smiled. When Earth burned, only one species had been free in this galaxy, and they had chosen extinction. Now dozens of species were learning what freedom meant. On the bridge, Lieutenant Bradley was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. Sir, we're getting reports from the Meriden front. Kushan's forces just liberated 3 water worlds. They're using our tactics. What tactics? Total commitment. The Meriden are flooding entire continents to deny them to coalition forces. They're willing to destroy their own cities rather than let the coalition use them. Dr. Helen Brooks looked up from her research station. The Zeftar are doing something similar. They're shattering their crystal cities to create massive energy, weapons. Each city they destroy becomes a weapon that can destroy a coalition fleet. Jake walked to the main viewing screen. Outside, he could see ships from dozens of different species. Aquatic vessels designed by the Meriden floated next to crystal ships built by the Zeftar. Gas-based entities from Airthul moved through space in energy fields that looked like living storms, but the most important ships were the smallest ones. Human vessels carrying children who had been born in the refugee fleet. These children had never seen Earth, but they carried something more valuable than memories. They carried the knowledge that freedom was worth any price. Admiral, said Dr. Kane, we're receiving a priority transmission from Coalition Space. It's from General Kethamore himself. Put him through. The screen filled with the face of the insectoid general. He looked defeated. His compound eyes were dim and his mandibles trembled as he spoke. Admiral Morrison, I request a meeting. Neutral territory. I have a proposal. What kind of proposal, General? Surrender terms. For the coalition. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. The coalition wanted to surrender? After 5 years of war, the galaxy's greatest military power was ready to give up? What are your terms? Jake asked. Complete withdrawal from all rebel territories, dissolution of the coalition military, establishment of the free world's government. In exchange, we ask only for safe passage to our home worlds. Jake looked around, at his staff. They were all staring at him with disbelief. General, you held this galaxy under your control for 1,000 years. Why surrender now? Kethmore was quiet for a long moment. Because you taught us something we never understood. You taught us that some species would rather die than live without freedom. And we have learned that fighting such species is impossible. What do you mean? Our soldiers no longer fight effectively. They have seen what your species did. They have seen what the rebels do. They know that any enemy might choose to destroy themselves rather than be defeated. This knowledge has broken our military power. Jake understood. The coalition's strength had always been based on fear. They conquered species by showing them that resistance was hopeless. But humanity had shown the galaxy that there were worse things than death. There was slavery. I'll consider your proposal, General. But I want to make something clear. This isn't just about territory or government. This is about making sure no species ever has to make the choice we made. I understand. Admiral, the coalition age is over. The free world's age has begun. The communication ended. Jake turned to his staff. Well, he said, I guess we won. But Dr. Kane was looking at another report. Jake, there's something else. Our deep space telescopes have detected something interesting in the solar system. What kind of something? The plasma clouds from Earth and the other human worlds are starting to cool. In another 50 years, they'll condense into new planets. Dead planets, but planets we could terraform. Jake felt tears in his eyes. We could go home. Our children could go home. We could rebuild everything we lost. Jake walked to the viewing screen and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in a solar system lit by the ghost light of worlds that had chosen to burn, new worlds were forming from the ashes of old ones. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. This is Admiral Morrison to all Free Worlds Alliance vessels. I have an announcement. The Coalition has requested surrender terms. The war is ending. Cheers echoed through every ship in the fleet. But more importantly, our scientists have confirmed that we can return home. The worlds we burned are becoming new worlds. In 50 years, our children will be able to walk on new Earth under new skies. Jake paused and looked around at his crew. We burned our worlds to keep them free. Now we're going to build new worlds that will always be free. We are the children of fire, and fire cannot be put out. 10 years later, the first terraforming ships reached the reformed solar system. Jake Morrison, now an old man, stood on the observation deck of the New Hope as it entered orbit around the world that had been Earth. Below him, a new planet was taking shape. The surface was still hot from its formation, but the atmospheric processors were already working. In another generation, children would run through forests that grew from the ashes of humanity's greatest sacrifice. Dr. Kane, also old now but still curious, stood beside him. Do you think we made the right choice, Jake? Jake looked down at the new world forming below them. Lisa, when we chose to burn, we saved more than just our freedom. We saved the idea of freedom. Now every species in the galaxy knows that some things are worth dying for, and worth living for too. Especially that. As New Hope settled into orbit, Jake could see other ships approaching. Ships carrying Merdun, Zeftar, Erthul, and dozens of other species. They were coming to help rebuild what humanity had sacrificed. The galaxy had learned humanity's greatest lesson. Sometimes you have to burn bright for a moment to light the way for everyone else. And from the ashes of that burning, something beautiful and free was being born.